Hello, sixth graders. Welcome to chapter 13.2, which is all about dot plots. In this section, we will learn how to display and analyze data using the Humble dot plot. Here we go. The number of text messages sent by some students one day is as follows. We're going to represent this data on a dot plot. So the number of text messages spans from 10, our lowest number, to 15, our greatest number of texts. So we're going to construct a dot plot using these numbers, and we're going to do that by drawing a horizontal number line. It's going to start like this. Because I'm only working from 10 to 15, I'm only going to add those numbers to my number line. No need to add ones you don't need. Okay, so there's our number line. Now we're going to label this as number of text messages sent. And now we'll begin to add our data. So looking back at our chart of results up here at the top of the page, we can see that 10 appears once. So we're going to place one dot over the 10. 11 appears 1, 2, 3 times. So we're going to place 3 dots over 11. 12 also appears 3 times. So we'll put 3 dots over 12. Notice that I lined them up with the dots over 11. 13 appears once. There are no results for 14, so we'll skip right over that. And there's one result for 15, so 1 dot over 15. So a dot plot is really similar to a line plot. We're just replacing the x's with dots instead. Here's our next example. Eugenia tossed a number cube numbered from 1 to 6 20 separate times. She recorded the number in the table below. And let's represent this data on a dot plot. So once again, we're going to take a look at the range of answers, and it looks like they go from 1 to 6, which makes sense because our die has 6 sides. So we're going to start by drawing a number line that includes the numbers 1 through 6. And now we're going to add our dots. So how many times does 1 occur? What's the frequency for 1? That's 2. So we're going to put 2 dots here. The frequency for number 2 is 3. Remember, make sure you're lining up your dots. The frequency for number 3 is 6. Oh dear, I did not give myself enough room, did I? Sorry, chart, we're going to cover you up a little bit. The frequency for number 4 is 1. 5 is 5. Oops, sorry, chart, we're going to run over you again. And the frequency of 6 is 3. So here is our dot plot that represents the data on this chart. All right, folks, guided practice time. For each of these data sets, please represent the numbers with a dot plot. Give each dot plot a title. We need to know what it's about, okay? Press pause while you work on this, and when you come back, we'll talk about identifying the shape of a set of data. Let's talk about the shape of a dot plot. A dot plot can either be symmetrical or skewed. Let me show you some examples of what that means. This is a symmetrical dot plot. Most of the data is near the center of the range, so your shape is symmetrical. If you could fold this number line in half, the 2 sides would match. Let me show you a skewed. This is one example of a skewed dot plot. This dot plot has a tail to its left. So we would say this is a left skewed shape. You can see how it almost builds up like a mountain with the tallest part being on the right. We skew towards the tail. So when we're describing it, we say this skews left because the left side is the smaller part. Let me show you an example of a right skewed. All right, so let's take a look at the shape of this right skewed dot plot. On this, you can see that the tail, or the shorter portion with less data, actually goes to the right. The mountain is on the left-hand side. So this is right skewed. Okay, great. We know all about what dot plots look like. We know how to draw one. Now let's learn how to interpret the data. This dot plot shows the money in dollars that 15 students earned by babysitting in 1 week. We're going to describe the distribution of the earnings of the students. We're going to use 2 different descriptors to tell what this dot plot looks like. We're going to describe its shape, and we're going to describe its range. Now the shape we've already talked about. We're going to decide if this is symmetrical or left skewed or right skewed. So let's take a look at it. I would say since most of the data lands pretty close to 20, with almost everything being between 19 and 21, we're going to say that this is a symmetrical. It's not perfectly symmetrical, but since most of the data is in the center, we will call it symmetrical because it's balanced. The information is balanced around the center of the chart. Just to remind you, the range tells us the difference between the smallest or least earning and the greatest earning. So our range for this particular graph is going to be figured out by looking at the least number, which is 17, and comparing it to the greatest number, which is 24. So we'll calculate our range by taking 24 minus 17 to get an answer of 7. So the range of our dot plot is 7. If we were going to describe this dot plot in words, it would sound something like this. The babysitters in this group typically earn between $19 and $21 a week, but their earnings range from $17 to $24. All of that is shown in the graph. Let's do another example. This dot plot describes the number of movies that 12 students saw last month. We're going to briefly describe the number of movies seen by the students. So first of all, let's take a look at this. We've got 1 dot for each student. This plot has a tail that goes to the right. So we would describe this as a right skewed dot plot. Next, we need to calculate the range. It looks like our 12 students saw between 3 and 8 movies. So our range is 8 minus 3 equals 5. That'll be our range. If we want to describe this dot plot in words, we'd probably say something like this. The students in this group saw between 3 and 8 movies this month, but most students saw 4 or 5 films. All right, folks, these 2 guided practice problems take us to the end of section 13.2. Remember, the answers to these 2 problems are going to be sentences that describe what you're seeing in the dot plot. Remember to include whether it's symmetrical or skewed. Remember to include the range, and then give a single sentence describing what's happening, just like we did with the babysitting money and the number of movies seen. Have fun. I'll see you all tomorrow, and thanks for learning with me. Bye.